Pelia's problem is possibly and potentially her plan. Welcome, my friends. Today I just wanted to jump on and do a brief discussion on something that I am intrigued and worried about that's going to be occurring in Strange New Worlds Season 2. And before I get into it, I did see that little clip that dropped a day or so ago about the tribunal, the dress uniforms, the little bit of activity we got to see from that. I don't really want to talk about that because as a specific scene from the episode, I don't want to treat it separate from the episode. So while I did see some clips from it, I haven't watched it in full, specifically because I do want to see it within the context of the actual episode. I'm not a big fan of when they drop these little snippets and full scenes from a series before it comes out, because I feel like that breaks the immersion and it takes you out of the scene, so I don't want to speculate on a piece of something before we actually see it. Trailers are a whole other story. But now into the problem, or the potential, or whatever you want to call it, of Pelia, or however you pronounce her name. I'm not entirely sure I'm saying that right. This is what I want to discuss, because as you probably know from watching my other videos, if you have watched my other videos, I was distinctly unimpressed with what happened with Hemmer, and based on a little bit of information that we've received coming out from the creatives on Strange New World Season 1, they came out and basically confirmed my suspicions. They did kill Hemmer explicitly and specifically to forward the momentum and the storyline of Uhura, making her find her family in order to take it away from her, having that comfort pulled out from under her, so that going into season 2, she doesn't have that safety net, that warm blanket around her. And while I don't necessarily think that is 100% poor or bad as a narrative decision, because these are only a 10 episode series, or season I guess you would say, and we only had Hemmer in several of those episodes. He was one of the only alien characters, one of the only characters who we don't know survives into the original series, so to treat him in this way was a hell of a missed opportunity, and one of the worst decisions, because he could have been forwarded in so many interesting ways that you simply cannot have with a human character. And now we're on a ship of all human presenting characters. I know Spock isn't a human, but he looks like one, so that tends to give me a little bit of a problem as well. So now all that background out of the way, because obviously this video is more about Pelia and less about Hemmer himself, but I think that the troubles and the potential and the possibilities do stem from what happened to Hemmer in season 1. So she is coming aboard the ship as basically what we are led to believe the new chief engineer. And that's where I want to begin this discussion, because I don't think she is necessarily doing the role or doing the job that we've been led to believe. So she is wearing this little extra pin just above her comm badge. Well, no, this is TOS era. That's just a badge. It's not a comm badge yet. It looks a heck of a lot more ornate than I would think. It's probably, I don't know, even a metal or just something that has intrinsic value to her. Here is where I'm going to go out on a limb and speculate wildly. What if that is some sort of insignia stating that she is on loan? Maybe she is one of a few higher up engineers within Starfleet that's just so stupendous that maybe she's on loan to the Enterprise in the meantime while they are trying to track down an actual permanent chief engineer replacement. So instead of just sticking the ship with whoever was in the engineering crew, they want to put someone on board this important ship right now who is capable, and way more capable than just your average Joe, until they can reassign somebody in a more permanent basis. So this is leading me to another piece of speculation. We saw at the end of season 1 when they did that little "there but for the grace of God go I" season ending cliffhanger thing with, I guess it wasn't a cliffhanger, but the potential possibility of what would have happened had Pike stayed on board the Enterprise instead of Kirk, and the whole situation with the Romulans going down in a different scenario. And we know from the original series and this altered timeline that Scotty is the chief engineer at that point, which leads me into beta canon, and obviously beta canon isn't something they need to adhere to, but Scotty was present on the Enterprise for probably around 5 or 6 years as a lieutenant, a junior officer in engineering under the chief engineer at the time, who wasn't Hemmer. There was someone else in the book, but that's something that could be changed. So is this lending any sort of credence to the fact that Scotty, or Montgomery Scott, is a lower level officer on board the Enterprise right now, somebody that we haven't seen, somebody of very little importance, somebody who is going to eventually and inevitably level up, rank up, take over as chief engineer, and is that potentially the red herring, the misnomer, whatever you want to call it, that we are getting this series? Is Carol Kane only coming in as a glorified guest star for a few episodes, maybe most of the season, but she is going to be replaced by Montgomery Scott as the world turns at the end of this series? Why did I just say as the world turns? I have no idea what I'm talking about right now. But I think that we might be getting this little switcheroony here because, in my estimation, having Hemmer in season 1, this fantastic new character from a species that we've had very little interaction with. Sure, we know a significant amount about Andorians as a whole, but the Enar, we've only really had 2 episodes in Enterprise featuring them, maybe a little bit here and there in some beta canon stuff, and possibly, if I can remember, a reference or 2 in Lower Decks, which really doesn't count. So we could have had this whole grand revelation, this whole exploration of that character. We could have had the exploration of a blind chief engineer. There are so many things that they left open by killing Hemmer in the way that they did to forward Uhura's story. So setting that aside, why would they bring in another temporary chief engineer in a full-time position unless they're trying to do this as a red herring to kind of trick us into a lull, a sense of security here that she's here to stay, and perhaps it's just a switcheroony and Scotty will be coming aboard or is already on board and will be promoted up through the ranks before too long. Because I don't really enjoy the idea of so many chief engineers coming and going before we know we need to get Scotty eventually. So unless the plan is to have her for years and years to come, or they're trying to do a Harry Potter thing and kill off the chief engineer and have a new chief engineer every season, which I would also kind of hate, because in a 10-episode show that's not even featuring these characters in every episode, that's really not giving us enough time to spend with them. Heck, we spent so much more time with Pulaski and TNG than we ever got with Hemmer, and think of all the possibilities and the potential that we lost out on there. So I have to imagine I just talked way more about Hemmer in this video than Pelia, because I don't know, that's where my brain goes when I'm talking about these engineers on Strange New Worlds. But what are your opinions? Do you think that Hemmer was a wasted opportunity? Do you think it was right for them to kill him off? Do you think Pelia is going to be a good replacement? Do you think that she's going to be a main character, a mainstay going forward? Or do you kind of jive with my idea that she's being used as a temporary replacement? She's on loan. Maybe she's an overseer from Starfleet and she's just kind of here for 6 months or something till things get put in place. Maybe they have some sort of new warp drive that's installed and she's just there to oversee it and train the staff, and then she's going to take her leave and install the real actual new chief engineer. I don't know. I like to speculate wildly, but I have to imagine there's a lot more going on here, explicitly because, or specifically perhaps I should say, because she was shown so very little in the trailers. Perhaps it's because there is so very little footage of her in this season because she's not being a full-blooded, full-time character on the show, and there is that red herring status. I do like to think that this may hold a little bit of water. I obviously hope that she grows on us and we get to learn a lot about her, but if she is going to be pulled out from under us, like another death or something along those lines, I hope it's better than what they did to Hemmer, and I hope it's kind of maybe given to us right off the front, right as we kick into this thing. It's stated that she's only here temporarily. But what are your thoughts? Do you think that this little pin, this little emblem on her above her badge there, actually means anything more serious than just a little extra decoration? Maybe it's a medal. Maybe she's some sort of alien species we haven't encountered yet, and that's just an additional universal translator because her language is so far outside of the norm that it needs extra help, although it does appear that she's speaking with an accent that we know from Earth. I just wanted to sit down and talk a little bit about this because this, to me, out of all the things we've seen outside of that Lower Decks conundrum, could be the potential meat of this season. A new character introduction. What's going on with them? Are they actually who they seem to be? Or am I thinking too much into this and she's just going to be a straightforward chief engineer, good at her job, has a little friction with some of the characters, bonds with other ones, and then she takes her leave eventually? Who am I to say? I'm just here to throw my thoughts at the wall and see what sticks. But leave all of yours down below. Ask me any questions. Let me know what you think. What are your thoughts on the upcoming season of Strange New Worlds just as a whole? And until next time, computer and program.